And just to confirm, can everyone see the slides? Awesome. All right. I think we'll get started right away and we'll just keep admitting people. So thank you all so much for coming tonight. We are going to, first of all, welcome you all to joining into this webinar. We are looking and focusing on just talking about working while in the program. So please feel free at any time to ask questions. We're going to start with introductions and then we will go from there. So, all right. If my slides will work, there we go.
I can jump in first since I happen to be the first one on the screen. Hi, everyone. My name is Emma. I use she, her pronouns. I am a 12-month advanced standing MSW student at University of Michigan School of Social Work, and I'm in the community change pathway. And since today we're talking about working while in the program, my part-time job with the school is working for our Office of Student Services as an office assistant, which will be similar to some other folks on the call, but that is the one part-time job that I have outside of school right now.
Hello, everyone. My name is Brett Cohen. I use he, him pronouns. I also work with the Office of Student Services as an office assistant. I am a dual degree student doing both an MSW and a Master of Arts in Higher Education. And through the higher education program, I have an additional part-time job with a group called Wolverine Wellness. So those are the two jobs that I carry.
All right, I'll go next. My name is Kohler Olszewski. I am a 12-month advanced standing student. I'm in the global pathway. Like many of the other kind of facilitators on the call, I work in the Office of Student Services part-time as a work study student. And yeah, so thank you all so much for coming.
Hi, my name is Kaylee. I'm in the interpersonal practice pathway. I'm also a 12-month student. I also work at the Office of Student Services, the same thing as everyone else. So that's me.
All right, so our agenda for the day, we kind of already have done our introductions. So first thing we're going to do is kind of ask about, is it possible to work? Which I guess already hearing our introductions, yes, that is possible. Then we're going to find out about employment on campus, employment with tuition assistance. We're also going to take a look at work study employment, and then just maybe some tips and tricks about balancing work and school. But all right, so here we go. So can I work during the program? Yes, yes, you can. There are no rules or regulations regarding like the school stating that we as students cannot work during our time here. They recognize that while we are still students, we do need to make some kind of income and sustain ourselves. So the short answer is yes, you can work in the program.
All right, I can hop in on this one. So finding employment on campus, there's the University of Michigan career page. That one just has a bunch of like job searches you can do. You can type in specifics like grad student and stuff like that. You also can send yourself notifications. You can subscribe to the page and it'll just send you jobs whenever they pop up, which is throughout the summer. So keep checking back on those just to make sure you get the most up to date. There's also the University of Michigan student employment page. So there's temp employments and other employments. And there's also, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, there was one on the Michigan social work website. Or correct me if I'm wrong, because I remember you on the call.
Yeah, I'll hop in. Yeah, so that there is some temporary employment through the SSW website. Once you actually have access to the slides, this is hyperlinked that you can actually click and just go right to that web page for that that opportunity further.
Yeah, so that's that. You can also just walk into offices and ask if they're hiring. I know there's just a little plug. So the Office of Student Services right now, like 90% of their staff is leaving in August. So that is also a potential job opportunity and it's great. Highly recommend.
I can hop in to talk about types of employment that come with tuition assistance. So the websites that Kaylee was pointing out, one of them for the careers at Michigan website, when you filter through for graduate positions, you'll find listings for positions called GSI, GSSA, and GSRA. The GSI stands for Graduate Student Instructor. It's synonymous with a teaching assistant or a TA at other schools. And then there's also a position for Graduate Student Staff Assistant. And then the GSRA is Graduate Student Research Assistant. So these positions do come with tuition coverage, as well as healthcare plans and stipend. And the positions, as Kaylee was mentioning, do get posted on a rolling basis. So they're not all open at one time and then close at a certain time. It's by department. Whenever they are looking to hire their GSIs or their GSSAs or GSRAs, they'll post it. And the way that job postings for the careers website works is it does need to stay up for at least 2 weeks before they close it out and select anyone. So at least every 2 weeks, you're definitely going to see some new postings there. So I would encourage you to keep coming back and checking. These positions are very competitive. You are competing for these positions with other master's students, but then also PhD students. So when you think about those GSRA positions, as well as the GSI positions, a lot of times PhD students will be kind of the first run going through to apply and be selected for those. However, definitely worth looking into and applying to. When you are selected for any of these positions, they're listed as a 0.5 full-time employee, so a half-time employee. So you can expect to commit about 20 hours a week to any of those positions, maybe more, maybe less, and it can vary from week to week. For example, you could imagine that a GSI position, if it's coming up on an exam week, you might be busier with extra office hours, or depending on how the exams get graded, the following weeks might become extra busy. So keep that in mind when looking into these positions, that around 20 hours a week is going to be your commitment. And I think that kind of covers the information there. So we'll go to the next slide.
I can jump in and talk about work study opportunities. So work study employment is need-based employment dependent on your financial aid package. So this can look really different depending on both what your package is and also what you want to do. There's a decent number of work study opportunities available. And I believe you can search for work study positions in a lot of the databases that we've showed you that are hyperlinked in here as well. So that's a good way to sort of find those. And similarly to GSI positions, which it kind of, again, depends a little bit about how many hours a week you're going to be working, but work study hours are typically around 10 to 15 hours a week, which I think is very doable in the program as you're doing field and school as well. I think once you sort of start getting above 20 or 25, that's when it starts getting a little bit more tough in social work specifically, because you do have the field component of the program. So that's also something that's important to keep in mind. And especially if you're working at a field placement that has some extra hours as well, pay attention to that. So we can get into that a little bit more. But this, similarly to GSI positions, this is a good place to be frequently checking in, as different departments and different positions will be coming out frequently. So there's not like an end date to when these are coming out. People need help and are posting these positions pretty frequently. So similar to the other ones, just stay updated and be looking at the list. And if you're not seeing anything come up right now, be assured that positions are coming out. And especially as we're getting, through the summer and closer to the semester, I think some more of those positions are going to be coming out. So just stay up to date with that. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it on work study stuff.
All right. So when we're looking at kind of balancing work and school, it's really kind of the first thing is always making sure that you're setting priorities and managing your time effectively. So it's just important to know that when you're going into this program, it is, it is a grad program. So there is a lot of work. It's a lot of reading, a lot of assignments. Sometimes it's group work. So it's just important to make sure that you're setting priorities and using time effectively. Another good skill and like good practice is just communicate with your employers and your faculty about commitments. So be completely transparent with your employer and saying like, I am a grad student. Some of you are going to be starting your field just as you come into the program, and some will be actually starting a semester after you come into the program. And I know that when you start, going to field 2.5 or 2.5 days a week, that does eat up quite a bit of your time. So making sure that you are, letting your employer know, saying, hey, I am going to be at field these days. My hours might be changing, and just being honest and transparent about that. Another idea is exploring flexible work options. So sometimes within these, work study positions or other positions, there is the opportunity to be flexible. I know that sometimes work studies are able to take their work remote if they need to, or flex their hours if need be. Typically, at least in many, I guess, of our experiences, offices are very flexible with students. They recognize that we are busy and that things do come up, and so they're usually pretty, up to work with us. Next thing is reflect on the amount of time that you feel comfortable working. It really is a personal choice of how much you feel you can work. I always give the example of like I was an undergrad, I was working a part-time, like 2 part-time jobs, and had a full class load. Now that I'm in this program and my academic edge just from taking a break between is a little bit not as sharp. So I was like, I just need more time to study. So I've just needed to take less time working. And it just made me the most comfortable, but making sure that whatever you feel comfortable with, you're agreeing to. Setting boundaries and like having self-care practices. This is something that you need to start practicing now as a student, because in our roles as social workers, it's really important that we set boundaries and have self-care practices kind of set up and a part of our routine. So it's just a good practice to start setting them now. And then lastly, if you ever need assistance, here are some options that you can use to reach out. So CAP Services, Wolverine Wellness, and then of course the Office of Student Services. Right, and that kind of leads the end of our kind of formal part of the presentation. So now they're going to open up to anyone who has any questions. So you can either unmute and ask your question if you want. You can raise your hand and we'll call on you, or if you feel more comfortable like typing your question into the chat, please do so as well. If you are going to type it into the chat, please know that we might say it out loud so everyone can hear it, and then additionally respond in the chat as well.
Hi, sorry. I have a question. I don't know if you guys went over this, but I came in a little bit late. So for the GSI and the tuition covering employments, well, specifically GSIing, if we don't get it in our, like, let's say our first year and we get it for like our second year, if we're like doing like the long path, is it still gonna for our tuition from the previous year, or is just going to cover for that year? Does that make sense?
Yeah, so the tuition coverage that comes with any of those graduate student positions, so it's just GSI, GSSA, and GSRA, will only be in effect the terms when you are holding that position. So it is possible to start without one of those positions and then continue to apply, and then say in your second, third semester, get one of the positions, but the tuition coverage would not go backwards. So whatever you had to pay up to that point would still have already had been paid. Does that help answer?
Thank you. Yes, perfect. Yeah. Thank you.
All right. So I saw one question in the chat. And it says, so I was wondering, field takes up a lot of time and is also basically work. Is there ever paid like field placements, or is it always unpaid? So that answer is there are some paid field options. I will not say that there are a lot of them, and I will also say that not all of them are highly paid. So just an example, like my field placement, I am going to receive a stipend, but it's a stipend at the end of my internship. And it is not significantly a large amount, but it is still some type of payment. When you are applying for field, there is an option that you can kind of filter for paid internships, but it's also important to just recognize that that doesn't always mean that there are paid internships available. So that's just something to kind of know going into field, that it's not always paid. But thanks for the question. We see a hand raised, so feel free to ask your question.
Yeah, hi, again, it's me. So for, let's say the scholarships and grants that the School of Social Work has, which I heard it's like, you know, they have really good funding, I mean, scholarship stuff. How likely is it to, you know, get funding and grants? Like, let's say if I like were to apply to multiple ones that fit my, like, I guess, description or requirement or eligibility, that's the word. So how likely would I be able to get one?
I can pull up, there is on our school social work website kind of a breakdown of a multitude of scholarships. Some are specific to the School of Social Work, and then others are just scholarships that they've done their own research on. So it's private scholarships outside of the school, but they'll still list it on their website. Those ones tend to be more of like the affinities focused or identity based scholarships. So more opportunities to just kind of look through and see what's out there, to see if it matches a variety of the requirements. And then looking through those, I think will offer the best answer of, you know, what exists out there. It's definitely not the full list. There's additional offices on campus that can help you with scholarships that we can always point you in the direction of. But let me just pull it up and I'll put the link in the chat in a second.
Going along with that, I also wanted to add in, I guess we didn't mention it here in our PowerPoint, but something that does come up along the scholarships and grants is also fellowship funding. And with fellowships, there is, like, of course, some kind of payment that are like financial award that you're receiving. And then in exchange for that, some of those fellowships are requiring you to work in an office, or kind of addressing certain issues. So that kind of goes along with those scholarships and grants. And I wanted to just add that into the conversation. So, yeah. All right, I see another question in the chat. Since so many of you work in the Office of Student Services, could you share more about working there? What it's like, and how flexible they are with MSW students. And I'll let any one of us hop in and answer.
I can jump in. I definitely working at OSS, I would say is very flexible towards MSW students. So for the Office of Student Services is specifically in the School of Social Work too. So they employ a handful of work study MSW students. And from my experience, you really get to build your schedule in a way that fits in with your classes and your field work. And they want to make sure, you know, that they have people in the office at different times so that the front desk is staffed. But overall, since they employ a handful of people, it ends up working out well because people have different schedules. So scheduling wise, I found it to be really easy. And if you want to go in for like shorter shifts, then you can do that. If you want to work a longer block, then you can do that too. And I know that there are definitely some opportunities to do remote work as well as work in person too, which is helpful. And Our supervisors at OSS are really fantastic, and are previous students of the MSW program as well. So all of them are very keyed into the fact that we are students and that we're balancing a lot of things. So generally, I would say, yeah, been a very good flexibility experience in Office of Student Services. If anybody else wants to join in on that.
All right, we see the hand raised again, so feel free to go ahead.
Okay, sorry. So for the applying for GSI stuff, should we expect to receive some form of email back, even if we don't like get the position?
I can answer that. Yes, you will still receive a communication whether or not you are selected for the position. So another clarification on GSI positions, like we said earlier, it is certain departments will be the ones posting it. So there are no GSI positions specifically under the School of Social Work, but there's ones in psychology department, in sociology. So those are common ones that students in the social work program will try to apply for, since they can demonstrate that they have the necessary knowledge for it. I don't have a specific answer of when those will get posted, but I am going to put just in the chat for everyone. Again, as we mentioned, the slide deck will get emailed out to you, so you can follow the links that are in there after you receive that email. But if it's easier, right now in the chat is that Careers at Michigan webpage. And this is the page where GSI, GSSA, and GSRA positions get posted. You'll see that on the link right now, if you're able to access it. There's only 2 things listed. As we mentioned, it's on a rolling basis. So this is a very low amount from what you would normally see. I've gone on there before and there was like 24 positions available. So definitely keep coming back and checking. But yes, the original question of will you receive communication, you definitely will. It might take some time. I've had it in the past where I applied and like 2 months later found out. So they're not always the best at communicating that, but you'll always find something out. And yeah.
Thank you.
All right, I see a question in the chat that says, is there a web page that you could recommend to look for fellowships? Also, is it common for students to find funding positions or ways to get paid to take on projects that they come up with? So does anybody want to hop in and answer that one? I can answer. I think I can answer the fellowship one. And I say that if I'm not mistaken, you can find a lot of the fellowship information on the same link as the scholarships. I may be incorrect in saying that, but to my knowledge, I thought that that's where you could find them the last time. If not, I will hop and look up a link here quick that we could post for that. As far as getting funding for projects that you're coming up with, I think that there are some ways of doing that. I don't know if there's necessarily like funding or a position, but I do know that there are ways that you can get like an independent study and secure funding for like independent studies, may that be abroad or other projects that you're interested in undertaking through the School of Social Work. But again, I don't think that's directly paying you. That would be more paying for the project itself. I might be incorrect on that again, but I think I saw something like that once before. But if anybody else has any idea, they can jump in.
I just found a link about funding opportunities for research. I have not researched this link. I just want you to know that forefront. But it looks like it has an okay amount of resources. So I would look at that. And then there's also like information about who to contact in the research office. So I would definitely reach out to them on that website if you have questions about it further.
I want to just make sure that we answer this one again, just in case. I saw one in the chat and I saw that it was replied to. regarding GSI, GSSA, and GSRA. GSI, again, are like teaching assistants or the equivalent to teaching assistants where you're teaching undergrad classes. None of those are in the School of Social Work. There are GSSA positions. A good example of what one of those may look like is across campus. They are typically hiring GSSAs within their DEI offices. That's just a common one that I saw popping up on the website quite regularly. And then there are GSRA positions as well, which are research assistants. Again, those are kind of far and few between as well. But I also know that sometimes there are professors within the School of Social Work that are willing to hire students to be research assistants. And sometimes you just have to go ahead and ask the professor if they're doing research and if they are looking for having a research assistant. And they're usually able to answer and navigate those situations. So yeah. And we see a hand up, so go ahead.
Hi, thanks for answering that really thoroughly. How many students in the program are doing some kind of part-time job or extra work beyond being a student and doing field work? Is this expected or assumed? Is it all necessary? I mean, necessary in terms of like good for your CV and career, not necessarily for financial support.
Well, I feel like there's a lot of people in the program that do have a job, and there's also, I think, a lot of people that do not. I'm one of those people that have a job just because I want a little extra money. I used student loans, and I just have that for paying my bills and stuff like that. So it's not necessary if you have the funds. It's also not expected. Basically, I would say do whatever is right for you, especially because you just want to make sure you're not stressed financially. You want to make sure you're not stressed mentally by having too much on your plate. So just, I would take into consideration your own mental health. Oh, I see a thing that's seconding it. So how do people keep up with college payments and personal life payments? So some people use their own funding, but other people use loans, especially with the cost of the school. So my loans cover my entire tuition, and you don't have to start paying back your loans until 6 months after you graduate. So you don't have to keep up with that until after you're graduated and found a job. Personal life payments, I also have enough student loans to that I can pay my rent and I can pay my bills on time every month, and just got to make sure you budget, especially because they give it to you in one chunk at the beginning of each semester. So yeah, if anyone wants to add to that, that's what I got.
Yeah, and I'll jump in kind of regarding like the CV or the resume aspect of that. I mean, if you are interested in, kind of continuing on, maybe getting into research, I would highly recommend looking into, getting research assistants with some type of professor. Sometimes they are unpaid, sometimes they are paid. But then regarding just like, considering how will my part-time job maybe contribute to my experience as a social worker, we have some really wonderful people in our career services office, like Betsy Williams, who are writing coordinator, or Michelle Woods, that, I mean, both, if you were to be like, this is my part-time job, these are my skills, I bet they'll be like more than willing to help you add to your resume or to your CV about skills that you've developed in those. And they work wonders. I'll just say that they're really good about helping with that. So, and I do see another hand raised, so go ahead.
Oh, I just typed it in the chat, sorry.
Oh, no problem. All right, so I will read it out loud then. What would a student do if they have to pay out of pocket because the loan does not fully cover the tuition? I will say, first of all, that I know that there is on campus, I don't know too much about them because I haven't taken anyone out. You could do a financial aid re-review. So that's something that is through this, like the Office of Student Services at the School of Social Work. kind of more details about that, if you are concerned about that, I would say reach out to the Office of Student Services and they will direct you to the people that need that will be able to help you navigate that. And then additionally, I know that there are, through the university, there are Grad Plus loans. I again don't know too much about them, but I've heard that they are pretty beneficial. And then also typically, I know that you're like when you're looking at scholarships, that's another option. I do want to state that scholarships typically don't come out until the end of first semester to start applying for, so that they would usually be applied in your winter semester. But if anybody else has anything to add, feel free.
I do want to add about the Grad Plus loans. I do know about those because I have them. I took out the loans that you get through the university, and then I asked for a Grad Plus loan, and you can either ask for a specific amount or you can ask for as much as the university will give you. So if you ask for as much as the university will give you, they'll give you however much to cover the cost and however much I believe in scholarships that you got. Usually I think I got 13K in Grad Plus loans to help me through the semester. So it's definitely beneficial, but also remember it's another loan. So definitely think about the stress it may impact on your mental health if you feel that financial stress.
All right, we see your hand. Go ahead, we're ready.
Okay, I promise this is the last question. Oh wait, hold up, because I almost slipped. What was it? So if you're taking, let's say, the 20-month program, but want to switch, like, to the 16-month or just go lower, is that even possible if you already like signed your agreement or like what is that thing called? Like the acceptance? I forgot what it was called.
Your enrollment, yeah. The name isn't too important. I know what you're talking about.
Okay, thanks.
Quick, yeah. To answer your question, yes, you can switch from a 20-month track to a 16-month track. I ended up having to do that. And it is a form that you fill out with the registrar's office.
Okay, and sorry, this is the follow-up question, and then this is the last question. So for let's say if you're taking two pathways, is it smart to like do like a 16-month or just lower?
So I would say the main difference when it comes to the 16-month or the 20-month is actually based on once you figure out your field placement. There are certain field placements that a 20-month would be preferred. The standard example that we use is if you are in like a K through 12 school system, because they take the summer off. So you're not going to have as much field opportunity during the summer as some of your peers are if they're, say, at a private practice. And if you are at a private practice, a lot of those placements would prefer that you continue all the way through rather than take the summer months off, just because if you do start relationships with clients, it's difficult to have to say, like, let me put a pause in this for the next 3-4 months, and then I'll come back and continue working with you. So honestly, I didn't change my program track until field placement started. And then I realized, like, oh, you know what? I am going to be doing field placement work over the summer. So I should make sure that I change it in the system. And then it's just a simple form to fill out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, we saw a question just kind of asking about, is it typical to have to take out private loans? Kaylee did a great job of answering that and saying that they can be taken out, but federal loans are typically preferred since you can sign for the public student loan forgiveness that may help you pay off in 10 years working as a public servant. And then put a lovely link in the chat. So thank you so much, Kaylee. That is something I always like to bring up. We are going to be social workers, and in certain positions that we will carry in our career, you do have the opportunity of applying for the public servant loan forgiveness. I'm not going to go too much into detail about that. If you are interested, I would just say kind of do a quick Google search, specifically looking at like public servant loan forgiveness, and then type in your state, and you can find the requirements for that. But it's a good idea. And we see your hand, so thank you. Also, thank you so much for asking all these questions. They're really beneficial. So.
Sorry, I forgot to lower it. So yeah, I don't have a question.
Oh, sorry. I'm so ready for another question. Thank you. So
No,
much.
you're good. That was the last one, I promised.
All right. Do we have any other questions before we kind of close? Seeing that we don't have, oh, Brett, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say I had been in a few private conversations in the chat, so I don't know if it was shared already. But we were talking a lot about financial aid, and so this is a PDF that the financial aid office at the School of Social Work has put together for a lot of those different options of where you can go for aid. Because I know a lot of people were talking about, the different routes to take. And then I would also say to just the financial aid office in general as a resource. So I'll just link, kind of their page and send that link in the chat as well. Adisa, I see your question of is this meeting recorded? Yes, it is. We will send that out. But the last thing I'll say, I'm not finding it in my immediate search, but I do remember that the financial aid office also offered a virtual webinar the summer before I started. And in that kind of went through a similar breakdown of what we were discussing of, what each different type of loan looks like. And they even had a slide where it kind of showed what your different breakdowns could be. So like if you're taking a chunk from federal loans and then a chunk from private loans, what would that look like? And then how to pay it all. So for those questions around what to do if the federal loan doesn't cover all of it or stuff like that, I think that would be a very valuable webinar. And so I'll keep double checking to see if I can find any materials from it from what I sat in it last summer, but hopefully they'll be sending you out information soon if they're hosting it again.
Thank you so much, Brett, for that information. Again, I'm just going to double check. Any other last minute questions? Yeah, it would be definitely a helpful webinar. And so again, seeing as though we don't have any questions, yes, we are going to be sending out a recording of this, some frequently asked questions that students may have, the slide deck, and just a kind of a brief email follow-up. I don't know exactly when that follow-up will be coming, but it should be by the end of the week. So that is the information there. I'm going to stop recording.
Just to add additional clarification, I did find the email from way last summer when they offered the webinar, and it was offered in August, so that if it's going to be offered again, it is still to come. So hopefully that is coming. And then the attached information about the webinar is the same PDF that I shared in the chat. So using that link will give you a lot of the information that would be covered in such a webinar.
Awesome. Thank you so much.